Be all someone else can be.
In the Army.
That is my advice.
Well, I feel like that's good advice.
It is, I think. I mean, if I do say so myself.
Well, you did say so yourself.
I did. That's true.
I'm
What a
gonna
keen observation, Mr. Frost.
I'm gonna do one thing here because these lights in the background are bothering me, so I'm gonna go turn them off. So give me 1 second.
Be all someone else can be.
In the Army. Stupid lights. Alright. All right. How about that? Is that any better? Worse? Creepier?
Yeah, it's much creepier. It's not as good as my Minecraft glasses though, so I'll put those back on.
Hello, Clarice.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why have you been gathered here today?
To join these two in holy matrimony.
Okay, well, I think I'm in the wrong room. So
Yeah, this is the Sanders wedding.
oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
Don't mind me.
I won't.
You
Never
never do.
All right. Welcome to Loosely Couple Podcast, episode 24. Tonight we are talking about MVP, minimal viable product, maximum viable product, whatever you want to call it. These are things. Versus production, versus what is production ready. I'm your co-host, Jeff Caruth, and this is Matt Frost. Matt, how's it going tonight, man?
Oh, it's going okay. It's the start of the Stanley Cup Finals, so I've got a hockey game on in the background, if you can maybe see that. So I will probably be turning around like that frequently just to make sure things are in order.
Well, I'm pretty much here just to watch the game, so...
Yeah, I was just going to sit like this so you can see a little bit, and
that's good.
Yeah. Things are not in order right now, so I'm a little perturbed.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Happens.
Yeah, so it's been a while since we've done this format, I guess.
Yeah, we had a couple of interesting conference experiences.
Yeah. I mean, the conference experience was good. The live podcasting
conference podcasting experiences.
Yeah, that was rather interesting. But hey, it's part of life, I guess.
Well, you tried new stuff and you hope that it works, and if it doesn't, then you just don't do it again. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Granted, the weirdness of the one at Tech was completely my fault. I had a little too much Kraken.
And I did not have enough Kraken.
You didn't have enough. If you guys had all drank as much Kraken as I did, you guys would have had as much fun as I did.
I see.
But yeah, I think I don't know. I'm gonna go ahead and suggest that maybe next time we do a conference, with no disrespect to anyone, I feel like the show that we did with Sammy and Jordy went really well. Maybe we just kind of keep it like this.
Maybe we stick to our own format. How about that?
We don't. We're not used to guests. Is the issue, and I think it shows.
So anyway, that aside, we were both at Lone Star and Tech.
We were.
They were good conferences.
They were good conferences. From what I saw of Lone Star, I was in urgent care most of the time. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. You and your infected elbow.
Yeah.
The infected elbow of doom.
The elboob.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, otherwise, what's a highlight from either of the conferences? Like what is something you enjoyed?
The nurses at the urgent care center are really nice.
That's it. That's a glowing recommendation for the urgent care. Was that in Addison or was that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, I think it was in Addison.
So if you're ever down in northern Dallas, you should check out the urgent care facility. It's highly recommended.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, for that, I gave my first tutorial at Lone Star,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like went pretty well.
It's good.
You know, one of those things that you kind of, if you've never done it, it's kind of a crapshoot on how much to prepare. If you're going to do, like, we did some like live testing type stuff where I had a GitHub repo and had everybody set everything up. And of course, with conference Wi-Fi, that takes like 4 hours. But I was worried about not having enough examples to kind of work through, just kind of not knowing the room and the skill level of the people that were coming. And it turned out I actually had more examples than I could use.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like having the GitHub repo there was a good, like, for the really motivated people, they could do some of the other examples on their own time after the conference if they wanted, or, whatever. But no, I had a really good experience with that. And then, Tech, the Tech was a good conference. I mean, the highlight I think that there for me was just, being kind of from that area originally. Like seeing old coworkers and old friends, and obviously the conference crowd that I, got to see you, which is always a treat. And
no, it's terrible. I see myself every day. It's got kind of tired of it, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, just good people. There was good sponsors, good swag, good hallway track. I have to admit, the only talk I saw was the Dragon Man Tanks OOP talk, which I gave him 2 out of 5 stars for. Thought he did a good job. But yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. It was mostly just, it was the road trip with Grumpy. Obviously, if you can imagine the two of us in the car for 7 hours.
Yeah, what was it like in the trunk of the car?
Cozy.
Was it roomy, cozy back there?
It's cozy. It's not a big trunk. I'm not gonna lie. It's a small trunk.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a BMW, so
it was a classy trunk.
It's a classy luxury trunk.
It was a luxury trunk. But yeah, it was a little cozy.
Yeah.
That's good. What about you? What were the highlights for your Lone Star and Tech? Since those are the last two we were at.
Yeah. Lone Star. I mean, I love Lone Star, and not just because they feed barbecue to people, but
it doesn't hurt though.
No, that doesn't hurt. Lone Star was, I mean, it always has like a real, community feel for me. Like it always feels like there's like a lot of people just connecting, and so that's always I enjoy going to it just because of that reason. So this year was no different. I mean, there were a lot of people there that I knew, and a lot of people that were new. That I'd never seen before, never met, and
never knew.
I never knew. They were new people that I never knew, and yeah, I mean, so that was kind of the highlight of that conference for me, was just getting back to be able to, hang out with a bunch of people that are really passionate. Like I had probably so many conversations with just random people in the hallway about everything from, raising kids to, tech stacks and deployments and stuff like that. So I mean, it was a lot of fun. Like I really enjoyed the conference, and I did help Code Rabbi with his tutorial, which went better than I expected it to.
Wow, you sound confident.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, we didn't really know what to again, like the same thing you were just talking about. Like we didn't really know what to expect out of it, because it was heavily focused on people doing code katas.
Right.
So you're in a room with an unknown number of participants with unknown varying skill levels, and you're telling them, work in this code kata. This is a new thing for you, maybe, but do it and trust us. It'll be fun. It'll be useful.
It'll be fun.
And
like you're trying to lure them into a
yeah, exactly. Like
we've got puppies.
We had free candy and puppies and stuff, so that worked out well. But yeah, I mean, it was just, from the beginning, you could kind of see frustration the very first time people worked through the exercise. And they were probably thinking that, well, Yitz especially, since it was his tutorial, but they're probably thinking Yitz was crazy. They're like,
Right. Well, I mean, that would.
well, yeah, but crazier than expected. That this code kata thing is not a good idea. And then at the end, several of them, either unjoined in or in passing in the hallway, I heard people talking about it, or just they came up and talked. They said how useful it was, and that they were going to try to do this in their daily developer lives, which I think was awesome. Like, we took people who thought you're totally crazy to people who were like, I think this is a good idea. I'm going to try to implement this in my daily life, all in 3 hours. So that's pretty good.
That's a good transition there from.
I think so.
You're crazy to you're still crazy, but this is useful.
Yeah, exactly. And then tech. Well, tech, I gave a 3-hour tutorial on object-oriented programming, which.
How did that go?
So, and I always feel like this, especially a new thing that I've never done before, which that was my first like in-depth tutorial. I didn't really feel that it went exceptionally well. I felt like I kind of targeted the material a little above the level of the people that were kind of participating. Like, I felt like I needed to explain some more of the backstory behind some of the examples that I was using.
Right.
But a lot of people seemed to connect with it, and a lot of people talked to me afterwards about it. And so, I think it went pretty well. It went better than I thought it did personally, but I'm always going to judge my talks extremely critically, because
sure.
I want them to be great, and I never feel like they are. So it's just, it's just me, I guess.
Yeah.
But so that was fun. And then the rest of the week, I went to a few talks, which were all good. I don't think any of them were bad that I went to, so that's good. And then just, again, like hanging out and being in an area where we can talk through random problems. And I spent quite a bit of time one night talking with a guy who was trying to get into speaking, and then another couple of people joined, and then Yitz came over. So we were talking about everything from like getting into speaking all the way through personal branding and stuff like that. So we were just kind of talking about, life as a developer. So that was really fun for me. And then the thing I took away from a lot of conversations, and even things that were said in other talks and panels and everything else, is that I feel like at that conference, a lot of people were focusing on how everyone behind, the code, everyone behind the screen on the other side of IRC or whatever, we're people. We are people. And like, I think that was a theme that I saw a lot of was, let's try to treat each other with respect and dignity, and like be cordial, and like be understanding of other people's time, and so on and so forth. So I thought that was a really cool theme that I saw woven through a lot of things. So that was cool for me, because that's something that I think is important. Like, just understanding that your value is not just in, your code contributions or
right.
what you run or whatever. We all have something to offer. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's a good takeaway. And I know I had heard there must have been a tweet or something that had been really popular, been retweeted a bunch about that, and during the conference, maybe.
Possibly.
Because I remember seeing that somewhere else from my room.
Nice.
Which is where I tend to hang out at conferences a lot these days.
Nice.
But yeah, no, I think it's an important consideration. I know Jordy talked about it a little bit in his keynote.
Yeah.
Which I thought his keynote was really good. Really enjoyed listening to it, and yeah, it's a very interesting. I don't know, like when I first started going to conferences, granted I've done a lot in a relatively short amount of time. I think my first conference was in like 2011. And I've probably done, 15 conferences since then.
Yeah.
Which is just a lot of traveling. And when I was younger, I always figured that I was this really super, like, extroverted, center of attention type person, and I am a center of attention type person if you've ever met me. But I'm finding now, and maybe I'm getting older. Maybe I just didn't have a good read on myself before. Maybe I just drank enough to not really worry about it. I get really, really exhausted being around people now. Like, it's not really my thing.
Yeah.
And I met some people for the first time that I was really excited to meet, and I'm sure I came across like a douche nozzle, because I was just like, by the time I had met them, I was just kind of done.
Yeah.
You know, like I met, Werloga. I don't know how you say it.
Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that handle. Sorry.
Yeah. And I was really, we had been talking online for, 5 years, and I'd never met him, and I met him, and it was kind of like, hey, how's it going, bud? And then Eric Van Johnson from San Diego PHP
Oh, yeah.
was there, and I got to meet him, and I was kind of like, oh, hey, it's good to meet you. I'm a douche. So, I mean, I don't know. It gets harder every time I do it, and kind of sucks because I've got like some really good ideas for some new talks, and like at this point, very little desire to actually give them or go through that whole process of traveling and getting settled in and being around people, and then having to stand up there and give a talk, and just at this point right now, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah,
I'm sure it'll change as time, as the months go on and I don't see people, and it's just kind of that post-conference downswing where I swear I'll never go to another conference again.
That's I was talking to someone recently about every time I finish a talk that I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do this ever again. And then the next CFP opens and I'm like, I'll submit it. I'll submit to this. This looks like fun. And then do another talk, and I don't want to do it ever again. But whatever. It's all good.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
that was the conference wrap up and conference our thoughts and opinions on conferences today. So what are we actually talking about? We're actually talking about MVPs, this concept of minimal viable product, which I think is a big one. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is I think it gets used a lot as a cop-out, right? Like, I feel like people have latched onto this term, and it hasn't been around that long, I don't think. Like, I think it came out of the book, The Lean Startup or whatever. I think that's where it originated, and that hasn't been out that long, has it? Like 5 years, maybe something.
Yeah, that was going to be the time frame I put on it, about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so it came out of that, and I feel like these days it's kind of used as a, oh my gosh, we gotta fail fast, we gotta pivot, and like all these, like the bro culture of startups. It's like, oh yeah, we gotta do those stuff. Like, we're gonna put an MVP, and that's a code word for the crappiest thing that we could possibly put out.
Right.
And so I wanted to talk about, as developers, what should we be doing to ensure that the MVP that we're putting out is actually a minimally viable product instead of a crapshoot of things that is sort of hobbled together and might work. So what are your thoughts on that, Matt?
Well, so kind of where I wanted to start with this, right? Because I hear that term, I hear that phrase, minimum viable product.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered, and maybe it's different in different situations, but I've always wondered, like, how, like, in those cases where you're, basically building a really shitty project and then being like, oh no, it's an MVP, don't worry about it, bro. How, like, what is viability in that case? Is it viable in the sense that we have an idea and with this really awful execution, we're basically kind of proving that we could, in theory, do it? Or is it viability from the standpoint of, here's an idea that we can make money with, and we're gonna like prove that we can make money with this before we, take the shit heap and make it like not a shit heap.
Yeah, I think I think as a theory of operation, I think the concept of MVP actually makes a lot of sense. But again, yeah, like what you're saying, like the viable portion, that's kind of the key factor. And so I think that's where a lot of my issue with using it as an industry as a goal comes, because it is, if you haven't really looked into what MVP or what it actually means, it's very easy to say this is the minimal amount of stuff that needs to, or that we can put out there that will sort of get to what we're looking for. But
Right.
in reality, what it kind of says is you want to put together the minimal, the I guess the smallest set of features done to the point that they work and are production ready, essentially.
Right.
In order to use that, in order to use what you're releasing as a way to kind of experiment and guide the future evolution of your product. So like the goal of MVPs is not to get something out the door as quickly as possible just to say you shipped something. The goal is to get a minimal product out that satisfies the need and the direction you're trying to go, and then to experiment with it and verify that you're going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the stuff, I've read a lot of stuff on this, and some of it's quite interesting. Like you're if you think about the whole designed by committee, or you don't want to listen to everything your users say, right? Because they're
stupid.
Well, I mean, they don't really know what they want, right?
Right.
Like they'll tell you, oh yeah, sure, I'll totally come to your product if it does this, and then you build that, and then they don't come, right? So like you don't want to always just listen to what they're telling you they want, because they probably don't even know what they actually want. But you do want to put things out there that they can play with and kind of show you what they want.
Right.
But I think that's what the key to using an MVP and using it well is to put out functionality that you can use to give you insight into what maybe not even the customers that you envisioned, but your actual customer base, your actual user base is going to use.
Right. I feel like there has to be enough excitement there, enough either practicality or excitement for people to be like, wow, this is really cool, or this is really useful. I know it's not done yet. I know it's not, in its finished state, but I can kind of jump in, use it, play with it, see what it does for me, see what I'd like it to do, and do that. But I think to your point, though, and I totally agree, and obviously when I said, that your users are stupid, I was making a joke, a bad joke, which I'm very capable of doing.
You got a whole binder of those.
I do have a whole binder of those. I think if you try to, if you take everyone's feedback as this is something that has to be in the app, you'll just never be done, because every user is going to have their own kind of specific little use case where things have to be a little bit different. And I think in that case, you almost have to kind of take the functionality or the requests and stuff that you're getting from the users, group them in terms of functionality, and then kind of break them apart from there and say, okay, we had 5 requests for this specific feature, and there's some subtleties in how they're different between the 5, but if we can give them 80%, that they all agree on, maybe we'll find out that it's maybe there's 5% or 2%
that
we can pull from the fringe that actually fit what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and that's, I think that's totally part of it, because it's like, you want to use the MVP whenever you're dealing with especially feedback from people and surveys and all that type of stuff, whenever you're dealing with that as a guiding force, you as a company or as a product developer, product owner, or whatever role you're playing at the time, you have certain opinions and certain understandings of what the product should be, and then you're using surveys, for example. Let's use surveys or user testing or something like that. Like
Survey Monkey.
Yeah, you're using something to kind of validate assumptions, right? Like, to validate what you feel like it should do. And surveys are one way of doing that. MVPs are also another way to do that, right? Like you make assumptions and you build out something that gets part of the way to where you think it should go, and gets just far enough that it proves, that shows the direction you're going. And then you get that out there as early and as often as you can, right? You're getting these small slivers of what functionality you want, and using the actual market or the customers, the users of your system, to show you, yes, we like this feature and we use it, or no, we don't like this feature, we don't care about it, let's do something else. So that's what the tool is there for. Like, instead of building out a complete and total idea, like going and running with something, you're putting out a small sliver to a small subset, or private beta if you're brand new, or something that's just catching, does the market, do the people who are using this thing, are they drawn to this? So you could do that with like analytics stuff. Like, you could look at how many people hit a certain page that just gives information about something. And so this is where, you go to a website or like a dashboard or something, and then you get to a page and it's got like a image of what it's like coming soon or whatever. That's what they're doing, is they're putting out a feeler for, are people interested in this?
Right.
So it's the same thing, but instead of doing it with a picture and a coming soon page, you're doing it with an actual working thing, which may not do 100% of what it needs to, but it does some of it. And that's enough to validate that it is a real thing that you should or should not do in your product.
Yeah. I feel like, I agree with everything that you just said about that. I think
thanks, man.
So podcast is over. No, the thing for me, and I think, and hopefully this episode, with us talking about it, will, maybe clarify any misunderstandings. I feel like it's become kind of like a buzzword, like the cloud or agile, or things that I typically associate with like marketing speak.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I mean, it can be a really useful thing if you do it. And kind of back to your first point, like, it's totally a cop-out. Like, you can do a really, like, awful job on something. And when I say awful job, I just mean, I don't mean necessarily the code, but, like, just a lack of planning, a lack of vision, a lack of execution. Just throw something out there for the sake of getting it out there.
Yep.
And then not really be able to get a good feel for whether or not people would actually use it in a refined form. Like, if it's me and there's something and it's not clean and neat and at least like looks like something I would want to use, I don't care what you do after your MVP. I'm going to not use it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, I think, scare users away from using their product by just trying to get something out the door.
Yep.
Really, really fast. And I think in a lot of cases miss a big, miss potentially a big opportunity. I mean, I'm assuming at this point it's just pretty much PHP frameworks. It seems like that's kind of the only thing that people do now.
Yeah, well, yeah, everyone should write their own PHP framework. I mean,
yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, I
or a CMS,
Yeah, definitely. Or CRM. But no, I agree with your point. Like, I think that's kind of the downside of MVP as a, I guess you could even call it like a methodology or a, you know, a business practice, is that it is very easy for that to become a like a way to be lazy, or like a way to, you know, just, you know, you're like, oh, I've got this idea, I haven't really thought it through, but we could build something that does this and get it out there and then see if people are drawn to it, and then, you know, just throw it out there. And you know, as the person doing the dreaming, I'll say, or doing the thinking on what a product should be,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, part of your responsibility is to look at hard problems and like understand what, you know, what goals your product should have. Like, you need to really understand the problems, and then you also need to have a very clear understanding of who your target audience is, and who's going to use your product, and how is it going to make their life better. Like, you have to do the work behind that. And if you can do that, you know, you as the visionary, or whatever you want to call yourself, you're
Probably a good
probably,
buzzword.
yeah. Well, I mean, you're more likely to be able to solve a problem, right? Like, you have an idea, you see a problem in an industry, you have an idea for how you can solve it.
Right.
You're probably a lot better at solving it than a group of random people that signs up for a private beta of something or hits some random page. Like, you're betting that the right people are getting there for the right reasons. Whereas, instead of using that as your sole source of inspiration, you need to think about the problems that you're trying to solve and understand them to be able to build the MVP that people will interact with and prove that, yes, this is the right path.
Well, yeah, because I mean, if you don't understand the problem, you can't really design software to solve it.
Yeah.
And so I think too, a lot of what comes out of those, you know, private betas, most valuable products are are like, you're almost kind of showing the user things that they didn't know that they would need, but just not completely. Like one example I love to use is project management software, right? You've got like your Jiras, and you've got your Redminds, and your we'll go ahead and throw Trello in there. And then what's the other one? Redmine, Jira. Oh, like Rally, right? And it's kind of one of those situations where if like all four of those things were rolled into one product, it would do everything that most people needed it to do. But I found like using just one of those things is, in my experience, not usually been sufficient for like, you know, executing project management. You know, either the interfaces are like really hard to use. Like, I found Redmine to be really slow and laggy. Like Rally's all built around the idea of sprints and agile, so it's obviously unusable. Just like agile. You know, so they all kind of have their like major flaws, and I'm kind of like, is someone going to actually fix this? But I mean, that's a situation where, you know, where the way people manage projects varies so vastly across teams and products that to come up with like, you know, the one solution TM may not be something that's, you know, possible. You just end up adding a fifth one into there and saying, hey, check this one out. This one's sort of less shitty probably.
Yeah.
But maybe not for you.
Yeah. And, you know, yeah, I think kind of along those lines, like using, or, you know, I think the consequence or the outcome of using, I don't want to say incorrectly, but, you know, I will. So using MVP, for the wrong reasons or in the wrong way,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like has led to an interesting culture where, it really does promote that concept that it's great to fail early and fail often, right? And that has been used as an excuse. Like people, and I'm not saying that I disagree with the concept that you should try risky things and you should be okay with failure and you should be able to, put things out there that maybe fail, and that's fine. Like it's okay to do that. But I feel like it's very easy to use the concept of MVP to come up with excuses. Like, you're saying, yeah, maybe we failed, but instead of spending 6 months on this, making like a polished product, we only spent 3 weeks on it and put something out there that was total crap, but it was our MVP. So we didn't waste any money or time on it, or didn't waste that
Right.
much. And then, come up with other excuses like, well, it wasn't my idea. It was based off of user feedback or whatever. And obviously it didn't work. So I feel like MVP very quickly leads to a pile of excuses if you
Yeah.
if you don't really embrace why it is an idea.
Well, I think my favorite thing with that whole fail hard, fail early, whatever type of thing is
Why don't they
that
say fail hard?
fail hard. All right. No, but like you said, like try risky things, try things that may not work, and give it. I think what in these type of scenarios, like what you're talking about, where it's like, yeah, let's just throw a bunch of stuff together, throw it out there, and then if it fails, oh well, we tried something risky and we failed. Like I think it almost creates like an expectation of failure.
Yeah.
Like I mean, being okay with failure and expecting to fail are two different things. Like I don't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail.
True.
And I feel like creating a culture where failure is expected, like just I don't know, for me it's like so unmotivating. Like it makes me just be like, well, if this is gonna fail, I'm not gonna waste any time on this. Like, why would I work on this if if we're just expecting this to just totally bomb, and that there's gonna be any users left after it bombs for our refined product? Like,
Yeah.
It's good. It's good to try risky things. It's good to kind of push the envelope. If you don't, you're just gonna put out another product that's already out there.
Yep.
That's the exact same as everything else that exists. So, I mean, you have to do. If you want to innovate and you want to solve problems in a different, hopefully more efficient, more, I say, more universal kind of way, you have to try things. And some of those things may not work, but I mean, I go into every thing that I write, like expecting it to work. And then if it doesn't, which is that's life, that's reality. If it doesn't work, okay, let's pivot or whatever the bros say. Like, all right, obviously something with that approach didn't work. Maybe the feature's not bad. Maybe it's just the way I executed it. Actually analyzing like why it didn't work instead of just saying, oh, this is shit, didn't work. All right, well, screw it.
Yeah.
MVP, throw in the trash. I don't know. I just don't like that. I don't like that, setting that expectation for failure. If you fail, you fail. Hopefully it doesn't become a cycle. Like if you fail and you learn something from it, that's good. If you fail and you don't, and you just keep failing the same way, which is what I feel like a lot of these MVP things are. Like, granted, most companies aren't around long after their MVP fails.
Well, it's
at least startups. I mean, I'm thinking more startups. Like you have one chance to kind of get it right, and you want to try to beat people out to the market because you assume someone has heard of your idea, and is going to try to, they're afraid of getting Winklevossed, and you want to rush it out as fast as you can and kind of set your name and your brand as the purveyor of the solution.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's like Miller High Life. Like they're the purveyor of the High Life, but it's total shit. Like I wouldn't want to purvey that.
Yeah, and I think that's a not the high life thing, but your other points I think were pretty good.
Oh, just pretty good. That's
Yeah.
all I get.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you failed, but no. So yeah, I mean, I think
I didn't try hard enough.
I think they're solid because, you know, if you look at the idea of MVP as, you know, this is the easiest way to take my idea and then validate it as cheaply as I can, like get it out as fast as I can, and, you know, go like that. Like the thing that you're betting on is that it does fail early enough in the process. Like if it doesn't, like if it lasts a little while and then eventually fails, then it's not faster than, you know, coming up with a solid plan and like going through. And then the other side of it is, you know, you're a startup and you're putting out an MVP and you put out something that's just the quickest thing that you could cobble together. And now everyone that's using, you know, everyone that signed up for your private beta, like their reaction is, you know, their opinion of you is based on this MVP that you put out, right? Which that is your product. It's the minimal viable version, but it is still, that is your product. So that is what people are going to associate with your name going forward. So I think it is definitely a balancing act that you have to think about. You know, you have to really identify the problem that you're trying to solve and what is the minimal set of functionality that you can do and get out there, but not fall into the trap that it's okay to fail. So I'm going to put this out even though I know it's not there. And then because it's, you know, it's done, it didn't take us that long and we can see what people think, because chances are they're going to think this is what they're giving us. I'm never coming back here. And that's why they fail.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's me, if I'm, you know, if I launched a company and was going to do, you know, whatever, you know, get into some existing space or some emerging space, and I knew that there was competitors and I knew that there was people that I was, you know, kind of in a sense racing against, I mean, you better bet I would be part of their private beta, or at least try to be. You know, I would try to get as much information about the product as I could.
Yep.
And you know, if something's terrible, it doesn't take long to, you know, figure that out. Like it's just a bad product. But I don't know. I guess like with and I think more of startups when I think of MVP, because I totally think of, you know, the douche bro culture, which is maybe not fair, but I do. And I think of startups and I think of like, all right, you have this thing, you have this good idea, like you're solving a good problem. It's a problem that people need solved, and you do it horribly, and you've brought people on to work, you know, 120-hour weeks for, you know, stock that'll never be worth anything because, you know, you don't execute the MVP correctly. And then your competitors, you know, assuming they have more patience or they have more, you know, somebody in charge that isn't just like, crush it, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to see what you did. They're going to see the things that maybe they didn't think of. Maybe the things that, you know, the features that you executed poorly, but they give them enough, you know, motivation and enough steam to kind of say, hey, you know what, we can implement this feature better and serve the users better. And I think what gets lost, I'm just going to ramble here for a minute. And I think what gets lost in a lot of this whole MVP, like I don't know, I feel like if you use the term MVP, you're part of this culture. I'm just lumping you all in together right here. I feel like the focus of the MVP always gets centered around the company and not around the users. Like, we have to do this, you know, it's all about us making money. It's all about us. And that's the goal of being in business.
Yeah.
But I'm a very firm believer in you gain and retain customers by giving them what they want and by giving them what they need, and providing excellent customer service and excellent response times to their questions and ideas and things like that.
So you're into working for charities then?
No, I think you can run a successful business by doing good quality work and
Just messing with you, man.
giving the users what they want and not being an asshat when it comes to support. I mean,
Yeah, which
if
I
you're
think,
just in it, I don't know, it's just a money thing, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I think that is kind of the sort of the goal of what MVP actually means, though, is to give the users what they want, even if they can't tell you that. Like that's the real goal. Like the culture around what people are misusing it, and you could make the same arguments for agile if you wanted to. That
Oh, I will.
in as a methodology or as as a technique, I guess, it is solid. Like the idea does make sense. Like in MVP, what your goal is to promote finding only what is the necessary set of features and functionality to be a viable solution to a problem.
Right.
That's the goal, and then from that you use that solution to build more. You could call them other MVPs, but additional features into areas and segments of your product that satisfy your customers' actual needs. So as a methodology, totally works. But since
Right.
it can be easily abused into, well, just put together something that sort of works-ish and then fail because that's what they told me to do, and we get it out there as quick as we can. So we've cut costs, and we've reduced time to market, and look at all this data we're getting in from our customers, and so on and so forth. Once you start abusing it towards those goals, yeah, if you just look at it that way, sure, it's a terrible idea.
Yeah, I think the flow goes now like. So I'll describe how I think the current flow is, and then what I think it should be. I mean, who am I? I'm nobody. It's just my thoughts. I feel like now people are like the first step is like, man, we really want to have a company. Like just for the sake, I guess, just for the sake of having a company, for being an entrepreneur, and some people are good at that, and some people aren't, or whatever. But like, hey, bro, let's start a company, bro, and like, all right, what do we need to start a company? Well, we need an MVP. And then they just, and then that's where that kind of whole like, well, if we get an MVP out and maybe it's shit and it fails and, then we don't have a company. But if it hits, then, we're all going to be millionaires and we're going to have, ping pong tables in our, office. And because that's obviously the, the sign of making it. Like what I feel like should happen is like, and again, maybe this is naive. Like, hey, there's an actual problem that people have. It's almost like you find a company for like you want to found a company, and then you try like kind of half-assed to find a problem to solve. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then you just try to, and then you solve it half-assed. So then you have like a fourth of an ass there, and. Sorry, you were drinking when I said that. And like if you have like, I don't know, I feel like the better solution is to be like, hey, there's this problem. Like we should all get together and try to solve this problem. Like, oh, we got enough kind of momentum and knowledge and passion around the actual problem and not around the fact that, hey, we have a company, we're so cool.
Yeah.
That's where you see companies kind of take off and succeed. Like, I don't know. Anybody can, in Ohio, it costs like $175 to get a company. You really want a company that bad? Like, I mean, pay $175 and then just don't do anything. But, if you're really interested in like building a successful business, a business that's going to make money and grow and do, make you rich, bro, you have to like actually have a plan.
Yeah. Which is to be the next Facebook. That's your plan.
Well, that's my plan.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's your plan.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And I think that's, and obviously I agree with you that is what people should be focusing on, is solving a problem and, providing value to people. Like if you're not doing that, then you're probably not going to be successful. Or maybe you are, because you're not providing any value to your customers, but you are collecting a bunch of data about them, and you're going to be you're going to sell that to to Facebook or Google or somebody later, which, you know, that's totally a viable business plan that a lot of people are doing. But yeah, so I agree with that. And I think the other side of MVP, so you've got the minimum viable product, and then you've got the concept of, you know, maximum value product, right? That's the other MVP. And, you know, that one's interesting because, you know, where minimum viable tells you should build only the set of features that are required to kind of solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Maximum value product tells you that you should only build the things which you're able to, or like only include the things that you're able to do extremely well.
Right.
And like, I think the canonical example of, you know, maximum value product would be the iPhone in like 2007, right? Like, you know, back when the iPhone was introduced,
mm-hmm.
there were other quote unquote smartphones. I mean, you know, BlackBerry had a big market. There were, you know, Windows phones that, you know, they were, I wouldn't say they were huge, but, you know, well, they were kind of big, bulky.
They were gigantic.
Yeah, but I mean, they were still a thing. They were quote unquote smartphones, but, you know, they built this product. Apple built this product that did a few things very, very well that the others were just getting wrong, and that kind of took off. And so now you've got an entire industry that was shaped by that.
Right.
So I think that's the example that shows, like, you know, if you're focusing on, you know, what problems am I actually trying to solve? Like like if you're trying to figure that out, I think that's where you would look for like providing the maximum value, as you're focusing on the problems you're trying to solve.
Right.
And then the minimum viable, that would be where you're trying to figure out if the solutions to the problems that you know about, if they're valid, right? So use them as different tools. Like the minimum viable is for validating your chosen solution, and then maximum is for validating that the problems that you're trying to solve are actually legitimate ones that the market cares about.
Right. Well, I think, again, you know, we talked about before with the minimum viable product, you know, kind of going through and, like, you know, using it to figure out what's working, what's not working. You know, I think that has to, you know, that carries over. You know, every feature that you add, you know, every piece of functionality that's in your app has to be maintained. It has to be supported, you know, hopefully, you know, iterated upon and made better. Like, it becomes a business proposition of, like, is the time that we spend maintaining, supporting, and extending a feature making us money? Like, you know, if there's a feature that just nobody uses, but it was in your MVP, and you're like, oh, we kind of have to have it because some people used it, it's in there, and you spend any amount of time, like, you know, like I said, supporting it, or, you know, all that stuff, like, you're just not making any money on that time spent.
Yeah, you're losing a lot of money.
Right. You're spending money to support a feature that no one uses, or that, you know, isn't a, you know, core part of your product.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, you know, again, that's something that people lose sight of. And I'm not a entrepreneur or a douche bro, but, or at least I don't think I am. I think it just takes, I don't know. Like, again, I think it's the fascination with having a company. It's the fascination with being an entrepreneur, and the you know, the thing that draws people to that is the excitement of, like, you know, like you said, being the next Facebook. Like, don't actually build the next Facebook, but in terms of growth and, you know, becoming a multi-billion-dollar company in a, you know, relatively short amount of time. Like, there's an allure to that. There's like, hey, maybe I'll try this out. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. You know, whatever. But I don't know. there's a lot of strategy and like business decisions that have to be made. Good strategy and good business decisions that have to be made. And I just don't typically associate that with like 99% of startups.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's tough. It's tough when you're a startup and you're
starting up.
A different focus, right? Like,
right.
Yeah, and I think that's you said something that kind of made me think about the difference between minimum and maximum. Minimum viable, maximum value would be polish, right? Like,
yeah,
in an MVP, in a minimum viable product, you're ignoring most of the time. You're ignoring like usability and
right.
The design and that type of stuff. Like you're not focusing on like the very small things that are nice to haves.
Right.
Whereas in the maximum side, you are, since your focus is solely on what you can only what you can do awesome or do very, very well, you're focusing on the polish of things, the details, the nice to haves. Like you're including all those things. So I think that's something to think about, like which camp you're focusing on as a company or as a team or whatever. And in the, I guess in the title of this, we kind of leading, I guess, where we're saying, MVP versus production ready, like what's the difference? And I think the takeaway or the thing that you should realize is just because you're working on an MVP doesn't mean that you can or should ignore all of the good practices as a developer, right? Like you're working on a minimum set of functionality. That doesn't mean you have to create something that's, not able to be debugged. That doesn't deal with security. That doesn't you should still be doing all of that stuff. You're just doing a smaller set of features. You're not doing all the features crappily, right? Like,
yeah, no, I feel like that's a huge distinction that most people don't make. Is no, this isn't about building, this isn't about building something horrible and getting it out there and just being like, hey, this is us. I mean, you mentioned security. All it takes to sync a project, to sync a startup, to sync a whatever, is like have a bunch of really obvious security problems. Let people go on Twitter and do what people do on Twitter and just bitch about it.
Yep.
Like you'll never have another user.
Yeah.
Like have someone find out that you're not, that you're storing passwords in plain text. Or I guess the current version of that now is using an MD5 hash.
Yeah, you're just MD5ing it.
Yeah. Right? Like, have someone find out that you're doing that, and you'll never have a user.
I wonder if MVP Inc. is a thing.
MVP Inc.?
MVP Inc. Like minimum viable. Oh, so it is a thing. MVP Inc. is Missouri Valley Petroleum Incorporated. That's sad.
Minimum viable petroleum.
Minimum viable petroleum. I mean, I think it'd be fun to make like a fake company that is this, douche bro.
What, and just like parody it? Like,
yeah, I think that would be a fun project.
You would almost have to document it. Like you'd also have to be like a documentary. Like,
here's how I built MVP Inc.
Yeah, like Douche Bro Inc.
Yeah, it could be a thing. It really could. Yeah, so
crush it.
Crush it totally. Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes my thoughts on MVPs.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think and I've noticed this in my career, and I think there's a part of it that. Like with the company I'm at now, they were a startup at one point, and they were one of the small percentage of companies that like they had a problem and they built the company around solving the problem and not vice versa, which is a good way. They were smart, good financial decisions, good business strategy, and it helped them grow into from a company of 2 or 3 people into I don't know, we have 35, 40 people, something like that now.
Yeah.
And they just kind of did it the right way. For that, not that there's one right way, but for their for their problem that they were solving and for the space that they were in, they did it the right way. And like even just in the 2 months that I've been there, like I've picked up on so much of kind of that mindset and that thinking, and there's people that have skills that I don't have.
Yeah.
Right. There's, marketing, sales, there's, that's pretty much it. Those are the only skills I don't have.
Well, you're like a MVP then, aren't you?
I'm pretty much an MVP. Yeah. I'm the real MVP. No, right. And so I don't know. I used to always think of it like, and I see this a lot. I've seen this in pretty much every job that I've ever been at. Like there's this kind of like combative, atmosphere, I guess, between like departments. Like, like marketing's like, hey, developers take too long to do stuff, and the developers are like, hey, marketing, they want us to do all the stupid stuff that isn't going to work. And, there's just kind of that. It's always been there. It's probably, like dawn of time type thing. Like ever since there was marketing.
Well, I mean, it's true though. Developers do take too long to do anything like that.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah. It depends on what side of the fence you're on.
No, it's a fact.
No, it is a fact. It's not that it takes too long. It's just that we're really bad at estimating it.
Yeah.
Stop. But like I'm seeing it now. Like I personally have tried to take a less combative stance. Like, for me, for a long time, and for a lot of programmers, because we generally the ones that are good, that are gainfully employed, and that are doing awesome things, love what they do, and for them, it's kind of all about the technology. It's like, what can we do to make this technology better? The technology's, kind of the center of their world or our world or some world, right? And marketing is looking at like, how do we take like the stuff that our developers are doing really slowly and make people want it, right?
Yeah.
And there's I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is I never really understood the combative nature of that. Like, I don't know, if you're in a company and you have a goal, like your engineering team, your marketing team, your sales team, even down to HR and finance and all that stuff, like you got to be working towards the same goal. If the goal is solving a problem, like everybody has to be on board with that goal. If your goal as a developer is to kind of come in and be like, hey, I just want to play with cool tech, like open source it, do something like that. I feel like the combative thing kind of comes from that, that fragmenting of goals. Like we want to do this, we know the company's goal is to do this, but we don't really like what marketing's doing, and marketing doesn't really want to let us do what we want to do. And it's just this big mess. I've seen it work really well though when you can kind of close that gap a little bit. You never will completely, because people are, when you work in a company with a lot of people that love what they do and they're passionate, like you're going to have disagreements and you're going to have some combative, moments, from time to time. But I don't know. It's just like, I think it just comes with experience. Like you have to kind of go through it. You kind of have to like be combative for a while and then like learn why that's not helpful in your space, and kind of come to that place where you're, I don't know. There's a balance, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But, I feel like that hurts. I feel like it hurts. Oh, cool. The Blackhawks just scored. Sorry. I feel like that hurts, like, companies, especially early companies, when, you just kind of have that, I don't know. Like you want people to be creative. You want people to get outside of their comfort zone and do things they've never done and use technology that they've never used before and, do all that kind of stuff. But it's like, there has to be at least a minimum viable focus. See what I did there? On,
I see.
On the company goal. I guess we're kind of getting more. We're kind of skewing more into like entrepreneurialism, imperialism, at this point. But I mean, I feel like they're kind of tied together. But I don't know. I just obviously when there's moving like lots of different moving parts. I'm going to summarize this because I feel like I'm just babbling now.
Usually,
yeah, that's how it usually works. When there's lots of moving parts in an organization and they're trying to solve a problem, obviously the closer that those parts can work together and support each other and kind of set each other up for the next step and kind of, think of it like I'm going to use a hockey term here, alley-oop. I'm just kidding, that's not a hockey term. But you want to make it easy for for marketing to do the thing that they have to do next, and then when they do that, it should make it easier for the development team to do what they need to do next. And it's kind of that well-oiled machine. And putting out a shitty product doesn't do either of those things.
No, it does not. Well, no, it doesn't.
A well-oiled shitty product.
Yeah. Totally. Cool.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah, cool story, bro. So yeah, that's all I have. Do you have any closing remarks or additional rants that you would like to talk about?
No, I'm excited to be back, doing it kind of back in my own living room. Again,
the feeling, man.
Yeah, really like super thankful. That we got to kind of try some new stuff with the co-host with with Sammy and Phil and them. And by them I mean Phil and like the other 7 people that were on the podcast.
When at Lone Star, that's pretty pretty brutal.
But no, I'm appreciative like them wanting to join us and just kind of giving it a shot. Like I said, I think for us with kind of where we're at, we're probably better suited for this.
Yep.
But it's exciting to be back and hopefully get back on like a regular schedule.
Yeah, we should do that.
Now that conference season is kind of winding down, at least the summer one.
Yeah, we're in the stall period now.
Yeah, so we should be able to crank out another 10 podcasts.
Yeah, at least this week alone. Oh wait, were you meaning over the next bit of time?
Yeah, like I don't know.
Did you mean tonight?
I meant tonight.
Okay, yeah. We can probably do 10 podcasts tonight. Yeah. No, I agree with you. It is nice to be back, and the past couple months have been quite brutal on both of us travel schedules, so you know how that goes.
Yeah, I mean I can't complain too much. Like a lot of my travel, like I went skydiving.
What's your own fault?
No, I mean it was fun. I like that. Like that wasn't like a stressful thing for me. It was a lot of fun. I went and speaking of Sammy, went and spoke at Chicago PHP like the week before I went skydiving, and had really awesome time there. But it is definitely good to be home.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, cool. So I think that is episode 24 of the Loosely Couple podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We will be back in 2 weeks from tonight. If you're listening to this after the fact, then obviously you don't know what we're talking about. But we'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode. Don't know what it's going to be about yet, but we'll get that posted as soon as we can. And that's it. That's MVP to production, MVP versus production, MVP versus the other MVP, whatever you want to call it.
Are we going to call the episode, before we close out here, are we going to call the episode You to Real MVP?
I don't know. We'll see about that.
I feel like we should.
Okay. Well, we know your vote, so that's good.
Okay.
Cool. That was episode 24 of Loosely Couple podcast. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Later.